Today, we're going to tackle a question that I get asked a lot, and that's whether it makes sense to do a Roth conversion when the market's low. The short answer to this question is maybe, and the longer answer is it depends on where you are. Depends on where you're at in terms of your tax bracket, your long-term plan, and whether you're even in the right position to take advantage of what could be a powerful tax-saving opportunity. If you are, it's often an ideal consideration. If you're not, it will likely increase your tax liability, and you want to avoid that trap. So today we're going to cover why down markets are often ideal for conversions, the math behind converting low, when it might not make sense to do a conversion, and the key mistakes to avoid in 2025. And before we dive in, my name is Ryan Knoll. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of Now Wealth Partners, a financial planning firm that helps clients nationwide make smart money decisions. Let's jump into the video. So when you do a Roth conversion, you're essentially moving money from a tax-deferred account like a 401k or a traditional IRA to a tax-free account like a Roth 401k or a Roth IRA. You pay taxes on the amount you convert now, but you never pay taxes on it again, even when it grows. And that's what makes Roth IRAs and 401ks so powerful. So here's why a market dip can be your best friend. Let's say you have an IRA that's worth $100,000, but now after a 20% decline in the market, it's now worth $80,000. If you convert that now, you only pay taxes on $80,000, not $100,000. That's saving you thousands of dollars in taxes in the year of the conversion. Even if you're only converting part of your account, the logic still applies. The lower the share price, the more shares you move into the Roth for the same dollar amount, meaning more future growth happens tax-free. This is especially powerful if you believe the market will recover, and history tells us that the market typically recovers. All right, we're going to work through a brief example here. And in this example, we're going to say that we have $50,000 in an IRA, and our goal is to convert to Roth by the end of the year. And now this is going to be an extremely volatile year. This may not be what happens in real life, but this is just to illustrate a point. So we're going to say that the market is going to first decrease by 20%, and then later in the year, it's going to increase by 30%. And we're also going to assume that your taxes in this example are 20%. So there's two options that you can go through. When should you convert this money? Should you do it after the market pulls back at the lower dollar amount, or should you wait until after the market recovers and do it at a higher dollar amount? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to note this in blue so you know it's a different example here. We're going to do this when the market goes down. So we're going to say this is our down example. So here we know step one, we have $50,000, and we're going to say that this decreases by 20%, which means you have $40,000 left in this account. So at this point in time, what we're going to do is we're going to convert this $40,000 to Roth immediately. And the trick here is to pay the taxes from an account outside of the Roth account. So that way you avoid paying a penalty if you're under the age of 59 and a half by paying those taxes early, and keep as much money in the Roth account as possible. So we know here you have $40,000. And if we convert, that's going to trigger a 20% tax bill. Sorry, let me fix that here. A 20% tax bill, or $8,000 in tax. Now, the next thing that happens is we know we have the $40,000 in the Roth, but then let's say the market recovers by the 30%. So you have $40,000. We have a 30% recovery in the market, which means you have $52,000 in your Roth account at the end of the year. So at the end of the year here, you have $52K and you've paid $8K in taxes. Okay, so what you're going to find here from the person who did the conversion after the market recovered, we'll put that here in red. So we'll say recovery scenario. They're going to end up with the same 52 grand, but they're going to owe more in tax. So let's just break down the math here. So we know that they started with 50, and then we know that the next thing happened. We had a 20% pullback in the market, so they went down to 40,000. And then we know that the next step, that the market went up by 30%. So they now have $52,000. They're going to take that $52,000 and we're going to immediately convert it to Roth. So we have $52,000 going into Roth, but we have to pay taxes now on the entire $52,000 conversion. So $52,000 times the 20% is going to trigger $10,400 in taxes due. So the end scenario for this investor is they have 52 grand in Roth, just like the last one. But here's the kicker. They paid an addition $2,400 in tax by converting when the market was high. And that's why we want to take advantage of doing a Roth conversion when the market's low, because as you start adding more zeros or a higher dollar amount as your conversion basis, this tax savings by doing it when the market's low is going to be even larger. So here we just saw with what I would consider a relatively small $50,000 conversion, it saved them $2,400. Imagine if this was $150,000 or $200,000. You're literally going to 3x or 4x the tax savings by utilizing this approach. And this isn't accounting for going into higher tax brackets and state tax rates and things like that, but it's just something to be cognizant of, even if you're staying in the same tax bracket doing these conversions. And this is why it makes sense to convert when it's low. So now that we just walked through that example of why it might make sense to do it when the market is down, there is a catch. And the catch is converting just because the market is down might not always be the right move depending on your situation. The real driver should be your tax bracket, both now and in retirement, or now and when you plan to do that conversion. Let's say you're earning more this year than usual because you got a nice bonus at work, or maybe you sold a business. That pushes you into a higher tax bracket. The conversion could cost you more in taxes today than it would tomorrow, thereby negating any savings you would have by taking advantage of this opportunity. Also, if you don't have non-retirement funds or cash on the side to pay for the tax bill, it might not be worth it. Pulling taxes out of the IRA defeats much of the purpose. You lose valuable tax-free growth, and if you're under 59.5, you're going to pay a penalty of 10% on the amount of the taxes that you pull out of that account. So don't convert just because the market dipped. You want to be cognizant of your long-term tax strategy, and that long-term tax strategy needs to say it's the right time. And you want to make sure you have funds to cover the taxes outside of the retirement account, so you're not incurring a penalty and can harbor as much tax-free growth inside of that Roth account as possible. And here's why 2025 is a really important year to decide whether a Roth conversion is right for you. So at the end of this year, current tax rates are scheduled to sunset moving into 2026. Unless Congress is able to extend them, rates will increase, which looks to be where we're headed, but nothing is final until the ink dries on the bill. So converting now could mean paying today's lower tax rates and locking in tax-free growth before taxes go up in future years if the current tax code were to sunset. That's especially important for IRA millionaires or those with large balances. If you're trying to chip away at a big IRA, 2025 might be the last and most advantageous year to do it under the current tax code. So now that you know all the ins and outs about Roth conversions, how much should you convert? And this is a hard question to answer. So the idea here is you don't have to convert all at once. Many people spread their conversion out over several years to stay in a low tax bracket and reduce tax shock. So for example, somebody might have $1 million balance spread between traditional IRAs and traditional 401ks. And it would be foolish to convert all of that at once because you're going to realize $1 million worth of income. Instead, it might make sense to convert something like $150,000 a year, which could take about a decade to fully convert all the $1 million balance you have today after you account for growth in future years. So this will allow the investor to fully utilize the lower tax brackets each year and pay a lower overall tax burden spread over a longer period of time. But for people who only have, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in their traditional IRA, it often makes sense to do it all in 1 year, assuming you're in a low tax bracket. But for those of you with larger balances, you want to be very strategic and you want to utilize the tax code each year, specifically the 10, 12, and 22% tax brackets to keep your tax burden as low as possible and keep more money in your account. So is a Roth conversion worth it? If you expect to be in a higher tax bracket later on in life, you can pay taxes from outside funds, not the funds within your IRA itself. Or if you want long-term tax-free growth that can be distributed to you tax-free in retirement, if you can answer yes to any of those questions, then it's probably worth it. But if you're in a higher tax bracket today than you will be later on, if you're not paying taxes from an account outside of the IRA, and if you simply haven't run the numbers, the answer to that question is probably no. So should you convert your Roth IRA in a down market? If your plan supports it, absolutely, it's a slam dunk strategy. A market dip can become a tax planning gift, but only if used wisely. And if you need help figuring this out, we do this all the time with clients. Please just reach out via the link below. And if you found this helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to see you in the next video.